Hello everyone, my name is Emblem, welcome back to the channel. Last time I mentioned that I would be focusing on scaling for the start of the month, and that's exactly what I did. Not quite as much as I initially intended to, but I think you'll see why in just a little bit. In any case, let's go ahead and get started, and you'll see exactly how I nearly drove myself insane. Before we get to that though, we do have a brand new month, and therefore we have our monthly tasks, with the god statues, the troll invasion, and of course the oyster. This time our oyster wasn't too lucky. Hey, better than luck next time. Our true story begins a few days after the end of the month, as I took a few days just to only do really dailies while I recovered from the pretty long quest last time. However, I was looking at our player-owned farm and realizing just chickens isn't really doing much. So I decided we recently unlocked chins. Let's go ahead and pick some up. I only have 35 hunters, so I can't get normal chinchompas, but it is enough for cobalt chinchompas. I don't remember the exact drop rates because I did do this once on my main account, but it was quite a while ago. And in my head, I was thinking they want you to get a lot of different chins, so it's probably not too bad. Maybe like 1 in 300, 1 in 600. But I also couldn't remember if it counted per capture or for every chinchompa you get. And when I went to capture my first one, realized, hey, I'm getting multiples each time. So here we are, just north of the Grand Tree, which I did take a little bit of time to find during the previous 2 weeks, because I knew I wanted to do this at some point. I just didn't show it because it's not too fun, me going around to all the hunter spots in the world, trying to figure out the different chinchompa spawns. This was actually the last one I found, and was almost by luck, because like I mentioned before, I did do this on my main account at one point, and I vaguely remembered this hunter area up here somehow. But if that hadn't happened, I probably would have found the kobolds and just went to one of the other chinchompas instead. But off we went, capturing, laying down our traps, occasionally moving spots as my initial one didn't really work out too well. Overall, it wasn't too bad. I'm probably only going to show the sped up version of this first time, as it is a bit much. I don't mind Hunter. I do find it a bit tedious, especially since you're standing in nearly one spot and just slowly waiting for them to come to you. It's in that middle ground of passive and active where you can't just zone out, have it off to the side, and focus on something else, but you also can't just focus on the game because you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. For the most part, I put on a YouTube video on the side because I couldn't figure out what else I wanted to do. I was thinking about doing some Critical Role podcasts, but I didn't know how long this would actually take, so I decided to just play it safe with some shorter term videos. After I hit 48 Hunter and captured about 2,000 Cobalt Chinchompas, I figured that was enough for the moment and decided to take a quick 30-minute break before continuing on with our Cobalt baby capturing journey. And continue on we did, capturing 2,500, 3,000. Around the time I got to 3,500, I was thinking, maybe it's not 1 in 300. Because even if it was based on every individual capture instead of the number of chins you get, that's still 700 going on 800 captures at that point if you average about 4 per capture. And so I was thinking, okay, maybe we're at 1 in 600 and it's only counting every single capture. Eventually, as our mind slowly started to dwindle, we got that super lucky final one and were able to end this grind at 3,782 Cobalt Chinchompas after 3 hours, 21 minutes, and about 20 seconds. And here's what I sounded like when it happened. Chinny, chin, 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 chin. Not by the hair of my chinny, chin, chin. What about your chin, chin? Thank you! Oh my goodness, I was losing my damn mind. If only I knew. With that out of the way, I was at 53 Hunter and had unfortunately unlocked normal Chinchampas, or at least the gray Chinchampas, and decided that would be an excellent one to go for next since you can actually use those in combat once I can actually wield them, and that I could use that for grinding my range level later. I made my way to the Picatore's Hunter area, found a spot with some Chinchampas, and started laying out my traps. I went ahead and brought 4 this time because, who knows, maybe I'll hit the 60 Hunter needed to lay down a 4th trap. Not that far away, so if I get unlucky, I'll probably use it. I didn't exactly like the first spot, so after a little bit I moved to this spot, just south of the falconry area, and I quite liked it. So that was my home while I was hunting these Chinchampas. The first immediate difference is you only get 1 Chinchampa per trap this time. I won't have to guess how many traps have actually been activated, as it will only be 1 at a time. I thought maybe my agility level was just too low, but when I went and checked it later, I realized no, the gray and carnivorous Chinchampas do not have a multiples. No matter when you do them, you will only ever get 1, which probably makes them a bit rare and more difficult to obtain than the others, unless of course you get lucky. I was determined to get this second baby though, because once I have 2 Chinchampas, then I can finally get them breeding, and I won't need any more, for now at least. I'll probably need to get 1 of each type later, but once I can actually get them breeding, will be good. I can start moving on to other projects. So I settled down and just started catching chins. 100, 200. I'd made sure to take breaks every now and then. 300, 400, 500. Hey, we got to 600. That's what I thought the drop rate was. But still no baby yet. And so we kept going and going and going until I finally decided enough was enough for today, caught my 1000th chin, and decided to call it and go ahead and do my dailies and call it a night after about 5 hours and 15 minutes of catching chins throughout the entire day. But hey, we got 62 Hunter and can now use that 4th trap. And then we have the second verse, pretty much the same as the first. I spent quite a bit of time grinding away the next day. I really wanted to get this done, and since I was at 1000, I was thinking maybe I would get it fairly quickly, especially if it was the 1 in 600. But I did it in groups of 500 at a time before taking breaks here and there. While I was working in this area, I found a spot that I quite liked, at least towards the end of the day, and I used the shadow of the tree to guide where I would place my traps from then on. I would occasionally catch the implings that were passing by. I even got a minute kill token at one point. Sometimes I would get stretches of a whole lot of nothing, but then I'd get a few minutes of just constant traps going off. It's kind of up to whatever the chins felt like. As I got to 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, it just wasn't looking great. So came an end to yet another day. In the end, we ended up going for about 6 hours and 20 minutes throughout the day, and we ended up with level 68 Hunter this time. And so my insanity continued for yet another day, catching more and more chins as I went. At least this time I got a few milestones done though. The biggest one was actually hitting 70 Hunter. Yay! That unlocked the next level of the Hunter's Lodge in Anachronia. It also allows you to start getting Hunter fragments whenever you earn Hunter XP, which I started seeing a lot of. The unfortunate part is it is in green text, much like it is when I got the baby Cobalt Chinchampa. So I kept seeing it pop up in the chat log and thinking, oh, is my baby finally here? only to be disappointed over and over and over again. But hey, we kept at it as we kept driving ourselves insane, as we kept hitting milestone after milestone of number of Chinchampas. The only positive aspect of the whole thing is the fact that I was getting faster at catching all the Chinchampas. Where the previous day, 500 took me a little over 2 hours each, today I was getting 500 in about an hour and 40 minutes each. So that was definitely an improvement. It's just unfortunate that I caught about another 2,000 Chinchampas throughout the day for no results, unfortunately. For day 3, we spent about 6 hours and 48 minutes catching the 2,000 extra Chinchampas, bringing our total to 4,500, and our hunter level to level 73. In my mind, I kept debating whether or not I wanted to see 5,000 Chinchampas, because on one hand, it would be rather significant to have gone that dry, while on the other, I just wanted this whole grind to be done. Our 4th day began, much like the others, setting up in the shade of our tree, and just starting to catch our chins one by one. As I slowly resigned myself to making it all the way to 5,000, I got interrupted for a little bit by a kind stranger who, for some reason, was over by this way. Maybe a clue scroll or something else. We got to talking a little bit. They mentioned how they prefer using the trapper to get stuff like Chinchampas, as they really didn't like box trapping, which I can fully understand. Unfortunately for me, the trapper, which I checked later, does cost 5,000 beans, which I don't have available to me just yet. However, as they went on their way, not even 5 minutes later, this happened. I got it! I got it! Oh! Oh my god. I finally got it. That's right, we finally got our baby gray Chinchampa. Woo! And it only took us 4,814 Chinchampas. After it was done, I went ahead and did check what the drop rate was on Chinchampas. Once I did, I found out that they are actually 1 in 1,500. A lot rarer than I originally thought. However, I then went to a calculator for a probability, plugged in the numbers, and saw that even with that being the case, I still had over a 98% chance that I would have gotten it before now. So, yes, it's decently rare, but I still went extremely dry on something that I really didn't want to go dry on. Altogether, the stats, we spent a total of about 19 and a half hours straight catching Chinchampas over the course of 4 days. After the Cobalt Chinchampas, we were level 53 Hunter, and after the regular Chinchampas, we got all the way to level 74. However, there's one small problem. I need these to be 2 different genders, otherwise there's a very tiny chance of them ever getting a child, and I would rather get that whole process started quickly. And so I went to check them, and they're different genders! Yay! It wasn't for nothing! And we can now get them set up in player-owned farms. And then, because I didn't lose my mind enough, I decided to go with the next step in my original plan, which was agility. I had recently unlocked the April agility course, and I did Monkey Madness, so might as well head over there and begin training it up, get some more of those shortcuts unlocked, and get to the point where I could complete the Reg side quest as well. In addition, this would give me access to the pit, as every time you complete a lap, there is a chance that you will be called over by this talent scout, and he will smuggle you away into a game of chance and sometimes a little bit of skill in order to get a nice chunk of free experience and agility, and potentially a piece of a set of equipment that boosts your agility experience, which thankfully I learned you can get whether you succeed or fail. So I set myself up and began the grind. My initial idea was to get to 70 agility, thereby giving myself access to the Anachronia course and unlocking a whole bunch of stuff. However, as I looked at the guide, I realized that 65 unlocks the Oasis course, which would probably be the next best one, and so I set the goal for 65 for now, and figured I can come back to it later at some point. For now though, it was time to begin just going through this course over and over and over again, which I didn't mind too much, but it was kind of the same intensity as the Hunter. I did find it a little bit better though. Hey look, it's some sheep, which I almost always lose because my luck is not great, especially with this one. 50 agility, 51 agility, 52 agility, 53 agility, and then some karaoke, which I think is a good mix of both skill and luck, as you can win more times than not with some skill. This gave me my first victory in the pit, and 54 agility, 55 agility, 56 agility. Put the thing in the other thing, which is actually my favorite minigame as it's completely skill based. And we end off the first day with 57 agility. Quite good progress for about 3 hours of work. Second day comes around, going about the same as the first, except with a lot less failures. We get another pit minigame of higher, lower there, which again is quite a bit of luck, a little bit of skill, higher emphasis on luck for that one. Then we get 58 agility. Then we go back to the pit for the floor is lava, which is a lot of luck again, but it does give me my next piece of agile armor. 59 agility, 60 agility, quite a few milestones there. The final pit minigame is called Create Expectations. A lot like the sheep minigame, it's a lot of luck, but for some reason I have better luck with that one. And 61 agility, which is where we end the second day. And then comes day 3, where looking back over what I did, I almost certainly had lost my mind by this point. But let's get into exactly what made this day so crazy. First, we continue our agility training, where we get 62, 63, and 64 agility. Then, as the new day turns over, because of the time zone difference, I check my daily tasks and I happen to have one for agility, and turning that in gives us a 65 agility. Finally. I then head over to Oasis, just do a few laps, get a feel for the new course, and go ahead and start unlocking some of the stuff around here. Which is an interesting course because you can't fail and gain damage, you just get a small reduction in experience. While there, I also get my third piece of agile armor and 66 agility. But that is where I call it for there. Then comes my insanity. I decide I don't want to just do skilling these 2 weeks. Let's go ahead and get some quests done. Because while I was going through the agility courses, I had a thought. Doesn't temple trekking give rewards like raw sharks? Because I still need that raw shark for the Fremnik trials, and if it does, that would be an excellent way to get one, because the alternative is grinding up my fishing all the way to level 80. I looked over the quest list, and I have all the other requirements to get it unlocked. So I decide to start doing Mauritania quests. In addition, I want to unlock the limestone brick shop in Morton, because for Fort Turin 3 you need quite a few limestone bricks, and I figured if I'm going to be doing all the Mauritania stuff, might as well go ahead and get that unlocked as well. So that's where we begin, with our first quest, In Search of the Myarcue. A stranger in Canifis wants us to deliver weapons to a group of freedom fighters known as the Myarcue here in Mauritania. In order to do that, we first had to find them, and he directs us to the boatmen down in Morton. After talking to him, he tells us a little bit more about each of the members, And eventually, after clicking through the correct dialogue options, he tells us where to go. Once there, we speak to the guard outside who quizzes us on who is who, just to make sure we're paying attention, and thankfully I get it on the first try. We then meet up with his merry band of Myarku. That's when our mysterious stranger shows up and begins healing everyone. We then kill the skeletal hellhound that shows up, and return to where we first met the mysterious stranger, who turned out to be a vampire, only to find a stranger in his place, and we complete our quest in 23 minutes and 14 seconds. After doing some gathering, we return to our new friends, and begin our second quest, in aid of the Myarku. The Myarku are in need of a new base since their last one was exposed, and have their eyes on a little town known as Berg de Rot. Unfortunately, the residents aren't too friendly, and keep throwing tomatoes at me until I give them some food. In which case, they finally welcome me in and tell me about a bar which just needs some clearing out, which the Myarku could then use as a base. We head down to the bar and begin cleaning up all the debris. I make a couple trips back and forth as I need to clear out my inventory before it's finally cleared. We then go ahead and start making the town a better place. We start by fixing up the general store and giving it some stock. Then we head to the bank and fix that up, which will be super useful. We then fix up an old furnace in town. But unfortunately, that also attracts the wrong sort of attention, as the vampires then come by for a tithe. We beat off Gadarinks twice, because I forgot a sickle the first time to hurt the Juvenites with them, but we eventually get through along with Veliov's help. After which we return to the Myarku's original base and let them know that the new one is ready, and they move right in. After we help Ivan the Youngest go to the Temple of Paterdomus in search of some safety, in a little mini temple checking minigame. Once at the temple, we begin speaking to Drezel to find out more about the warrior priests who fought against the vampires in the past. And after a little bit of prodding, he gives us a key to an ancient library where we find some extra information. Using that information, we're able to track down Avandis' tomb, which contains a special staff, which we believe will allow us to combat against our vampire menaces. We take a quick mold of it and return to Berg de Rot to create a copy. However, it is missing a magical and religious component, so we use the enchant sapphire spell to give it the magical and begin looking for the religious. I start asking around, seeing if I can get any clues, and even try heading to the Druid's Grove, see if maybe a nature spirit would help, but unfortunately there's no luck. As I go and speak to Drezel though, I do have a thought, thankfully, of trying the well in Paterdomus, which leads to the Sacred River Salve, and think perhaps that could do it. And it succeeds and gives us a rod of Avandis. We return to Veliov and give him the rod, and then make a copy of our own, and complete our quest in 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 10 seconds. However, that's not all, as I decide I'm going to do a third quest on this day that never ends. And not a short one either, as this time we're going for the darkness of Hollowvale, because I plan to do some temple trekking, and it's better if you can go both ways. To begin the quest, Veliov wants us to find the other Myarku members who are apparently within the vampire city of Myrditch. And in order to do that, we need to infiltrate and explore. Thankfully, someone left a boat here at the dock of Berg de Rot, so we fixed it up, pushed it in the water, and use it to go around the outside of Myrditch to get within its walls. Inside, we see a lot of sickly looking people who don't really want to say much to us, except until we find Old Man Rawl, who also doesn't want to help us, but eventually lets us know that in order to find the Myarku, we need to follow the symbols. And follow them I do. Or at least I try to, because these things are well hidden, and this place is a giant maze. I go through the various districts, getting lost multiple times along the way, and until I reach the final area, and then I spend a long portion of time, because a place that looks familiar to me is actually for later in the quest, and I kept trying to get to it, instead of eventually finding where the Myarku base actually is. After a lot of wandering around, I stumble upon our final destination. Inside, we find Vertita and a couple of other members who give us a message to bring back to Veliov. And instead of going back to the city, I just teleport away and walk through the swamp again, since that is so much easier. Velioff wants us to continue our errand boy duties and check on Drezel and bring a message to King Roland. So I start a temple tracking trek for the first time, just to make sure that there are actually raw sharks, and what do you know? There they are. So, yay! Progress! Drezel tells us about some concerning noises, and when we go to check it out, we find a dead body and are ambushed by some werewolves. We tell King Roland, but he is unable to send us help due to some Gothixian edicts. We return to Velioff and tell him the whole story, and he tells us to go let the Mire Queue within Mire Ditch know what is going on. After a much easier trek, we speak to Fertita once more, and she tells us the leader of this branch, named Cephalon, is off doing some scouting and needs to come back to learn about all this news. After getting stuck on how to climb over this wall, we eventually find our way and speak to Cephalon. He tells us to make some sketches of the main stronghold, but while we're doing so, we encounter a meeting between 3 high-ranking vampires, and as we go to make the final sketch, Van Strom notices us and goes to attack us. Thankfully, we're saved by one of the retainers of one of the other vampires, for some strange reason, and told about a secret letter that was hidden long ago. At this point, we return back to the places that I remembered from earlier, and speak to Cephalon about the letter which mentions a laboratory which may have the secret to defeating the vampires. We quickly make our way there, telegrab an old book, and bring it back to Cephalon, who gives us a shortcut key through the city. We then return to Velioff and complete our quest in 1 hour, 55 minutes, and 15 seconds. And with that, the day of insanity is finally over. The next day, I decided I was going to take it easy and give myself 2 goals. 1, get a bunch of temple trekking done, maybe to get some of the unlocks. And 2, complete the Shades of Morton quest. Maybe that was insanity in itself, but overall, it actually didn't turn out too bad. We read a diary within this zombie town to discover that there is some sort of affliction that affected the villagers, and the alchemist that lived here was working on a cure. We use instructions to create a basic solution and go treat the priest in town, who tells us to go talk to the shopkeep. The shopkeep asks us to gather a few of the remains in order to be studied, and we return with them in order to be told to go ask the priest, see if there's anything more we can do. The priest essentially tells us to go look at the temple up north, and we head up and begin the Shades of Morton minigame, which unfortunately is extremely dead. Luckily, there is at least one other person doing the minigame at the time I was, and with the dummies that are available in the shop, you can actually distract the shades pretty well and do it with just 2 people apparently. We eventually build it up, and I create the improved serum and cure the priest and the building shop owner, which was pretty much the whole point of doing this quest, before returning to the Shades of Morton minigame in order to get some extra sacred oil. I then go and cremate one of the corpses that we received earlier, which gives us a few keys, and we return to the priest to complete our quest after 57 minutes and 7 seconds. I then proceeded to do temple trekking for about 2.5 hours, with 2 main end goals in mind, both which are the medium difficulty of adventures with you. 1 unlocks the shortcut behind the bar in Conifus, so you can instantly teleport down to Morton, which would save me a lot of time. The other is the Ouroboros pouch, which you can put on your tool belt, and it is an unlimited druid pouch. I also just kind of like the mini game and decided to go a bit extra beyond that, getting just a bunch of sharks, and it also gave me 3 of the pieces of the construction outfit. From there, I had 1 final goal. To begin with, I used my new shop in Morton to get a whole bunch of limestone bricks, and then we began the quest New Foundations, because it was finally time to get started with Fort Fryn 3. Short version of the story is, there is a bunch of danger in the wilderness, and King Rold and his retinue want someone to build up a fort and become a new duke of the area, in order to provide extra protection, and so we set off. Our first issue is a bunch of zombies that are attacking the area, which we quickly and efficiently wipe out. After doing so, we find our companion Bill, who will help us actually build our fort up. First things first, I turn all those limestone bricks into wall fragments, which I will need later. Then we begin crafting our first object, which is the workshop. It's certainly not difficult in any way. All you really have to do is click on a hotspot and get to building, preferably the optimal one for all that sweet free construction XP. But eventually we get it completed, and now it's time to gather our crew for our fort. First is a steward by the name of Aster outside the Blue Moon Inn. Then we go see Overseer Civ, who is visiting Gunner's Grun. And finally, a rather overzealous priest by the name of Father Flint, who is preaching in the Draenor Market. Finally, our fort just needs protections, which is in the way of a bunch of walls. There's quite a few to make, but eventually we get through. And as we speak to our crew once more, we complete our quest after an hour and 23 minutes and 39 seconds. I immediately built the lodestone as well, and then I went and gathered the stuff to make the second tier of the workshop, the town hall, the command center, and the chapel. And with that, our basics for Fort 3 was done, and our 2 weeks was over. Oh boy, that was certainly much more than I was expecting, and also less. We did a whole lot of Hunter, bringing that to our highest skill at level 74. Did quite a bit of agility, not quite where I want to be, but I did get to 68, just 2 more levels to go. But I also really need to do smithing and a couple other skills, at least their basic stuff. I also didn't expect to do those quests at all, but here we are. In any case, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave that like, comment on anything you want to see more of, and if you enjoyed seeing my mind deteriorate, make sure to hit that subscribe button, where I'm sure more will happen in the future. But in any case, I hope I will see you all next time.